Hi, I'm Adrian Branch, former pro athlete turned motivational speaker and certified life coach, and welcome to The Climb, a show where we celebrate the stories of resilient people sharing how they turned adversity into success. From the business sector to athletes and beyond, be inspired and learn what it takes to climb. Hi, everybody. I'm Adrian Branch, and you're listening to another episode of The Climb, a show that celebrates the resilience of men and women and how they've overcome. This show actually focuses in not so much on the successes. Everyone wants to be successful, of course, but we really focus in on the challenge, what it took for the guts to leave the ruts, for the heartbreak and the heartache, and what it took for you to overcome. Because in my years of traveling and my years of being a professional athlete too, I realized there's three things people want traditionally: having someone to love, something to do, and something to hope for. So in other words, everyone can use a attaboy, attagirl. Well, today's friend and colleague is a person who is just she has an amazing story. I think you guys are going to really identify with it and a lot of the verticals, what we can learn from it. Her name is Leah Amico, my colleague, my friend, and she's a three-time gold medalist in softball, three-time national champion at the University of Arizona, and a three-time academic All-American, two-time world champion, and she is a successful motivational speaker, married to Tommy for 26 years and three adult kids. So come on, Leah. She is somebody special, and I'm looking forward to talking to her. Hi, Leah.
Thanks. I'm excited to be with you. Hi, Adrian.
Wow, we finally got you on here. There was a few restarts, and I'm excited for you to talk to our audience about your story. So I want to jump right into it. There's a story about you when you were 7 years old. You and I are lefty, so you were a lefty, and you tell the part where your mom and dad had to do something with you because you were just scaling the walls. Tell us about when you were 7 and started in sports.
Yeah, I was very rambunctious. I loved action, and so my dad loved baseball, so he said, "Okay, let's try softball," and I started playing, and I was a lefty, like you said, go lefties, right, AB? And so I actually had a pretty good first season, really kind of naturally. I'd taken to it, and I loved the idea of a team sport. To this day, I am a team player through and through. And then when I was 8, actually, a lot of outside parents were saying, "Hey, like, your daughter, she's so good, like, maybe she could do pitching." And so we actually found a pitching coach, about 45 minutes away. Now, in today's day and age, that's nothing. People travel 5 hours, but back in the day, that was such a big deal, and that really started this, like, path of a love and a passion for me, how to do something really hard at a young age, but to say, like, "I'm gonna find a way to perfect it," and just I never would have dreamt where it would have taken me.
And that was in California. So you grew up in California outside of LA?
Yes, Southern California, about an hour from LA.
Then the weather's always good. Then at 14, you guys were national champions on your AAU softball team?
Yes, for sure. So we call it ASA. I know basketball is AAU,
Oh,
but
okay, sorry, I apologize.
no, you're fine. It was travel, it was club, and so, yes, I was actually recruited. I was picked up by a team when I was 13. When I was 14, we went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the best part about that journey was that when I was first recruited, I was a pitcher first baseman. The coach said, "Hey, we cannot promise she'll pitch."
Mhm.
His daughter was also a pitcher, but, I had to prove myself, and that's just fine. I think everything should be earned, and we got to the finals when we went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, 52 teams from all over the United States, and we took first place, and I had the ball in my hand. And for me, that was a real defining moment because I was just starting high school. I loved sports. It was fun, but I think I just really saw, like, this could be a lot bigger than I ever imagined. And that was when really the dream to earn a college scholarship began in my heart.
Now, Imma go back real quick and say affectionately, I hate you, and Imma tell you why. I played AAU all my life and never won anything or met anyone who won a national tournament, so you guys were pretty good to win a tournament with over 50 to 70 teams. I know what you went through. Congratulations on that. You're taking me back to my childhood. Jumping forward Jumping forward, so you were celebrated with that moment, that defining moment when you came through with the successful with AAU and a lot of your peers. You're heading to Arizona. Now, Arizona is a big deal. You guys you went to a renowned program as a pitcher, and tell us that story from your freshman year and sophomore year that were two dramatic moments in your life.
Yeah, I was recruited to Arizona. They were really an up and coming program. They actually shocked everyone when they won the national championships two years prior to me getting there. So I was so excited. I did not have many offers, but I had the right one. I said yes to Arizona. To this day, I still think my coach didn't even know what he was getting because it was an assistant coach who saw me and said, "Hey, I think she'd be good." So I really earned a spot. Pitched a little bit my freshman year. Also, when I wasn't pitching, I was the designated player. What that means is I would hit in the lineup and just be an offensive player. Played a big part in our national championship my freshman year. We won. I got the only hit in the championship game.
Yeah, tell that story. That was a story. It was almost a shutout, but you were able to get that key hit before. There was no hits before and no hits after. Tell us that one real quick.
Yeah, actually, it happened really quickly in the first inning, but it was a superstar pitcher and really legendary program, UCLA. They were expected to win. They definitely the odds were in their favor for sure. And yeah, I came up in the first inning, but one of our leadoff hitter got on an error by the shortstop. She overthrew the ball. She got to second. I came up. Lisa Fernandez, this superstar pitcher, had me 0-2. I fouled off a bunch of pitches. I mean, she is a phenomenal pitcher, but I got one at my knees and I got a hit up the middle. We ended up scoring, and that was it. Lisa gave up no more hits the entire game. But we had a superstar pitcher also, and she only gave up 2 hits, and we kept them from scoring. And gosh, I was 18 years old. The game was televised. I thought, this is the best thing ever. National champions. I got to play a part of it. I was half cheerleader, half softball player at that moment. And then it was my sophomore year. I came back and my coach actually said, "Hey, we have 2 young pitchers that just came in. We have our superstar pitcher back, and I actually need you to go to the outfield. I want you to be a full-time center fielder." I had not played outfield prior. They had been teaching me a little bit my freshman year, but then it was like, okay, I got to go all in if I want to be great. And something that really, for a little while, made me step back. It's kind of a setback in terms of physically learning a brand new skill at 19, after feeling like I've reached my peak in many ways or, being at the top. And I just got to work. I just remember saying, I'm going to be the best outfielder I can be, best outfielder there is. And by the end of that year, I ended up being an All-American, ended up catching a home run ball over the fence and bringing it back in, robbing the other athlete. And yeah, and that's actually, Adrian, this whole thing that could have been seen as a very big negative is
Mhm.
actually what your podcast is about. It actually opened the door to more possibility and opportunities than I could have dreamt.
Well, go back to that. I want to park it there for a second because leading up to it, you're like a prodigy. So you're rocking and rolling. Everybody is saying at 7 years old, man, she's gifted. 14 national champions for the softball. Then you get to this renowned program, your freshman year, 18, 19, and you're on fire. Then there comes a time at a decision. And think about it in college. We've been privileged to go to college, Arizona, University of Maryland. There's a lot of identity going on and trying to find, as they say today, your tribe. When you're known, I'm sure, pretty sure that must have been your identity at the time. How did you problem solve? What was your self talk like? What was your mindset like when nobody was around to overcome and be successful after your sophomore year?
I think that I just got straight focused on what do I need to be the end result? I need to be great at something that I don't know how to do. But also, so the other half of the game is hitting, right? And that was a passion of mine. I love to hit. And I'll never forget another thought that immediately popped in was, okay, now I'll have more time to even work on my hitting because I won't have to be doing, my bullpens. And so I really believe our self-talk is the most important piece of what we do. For me, was like, okay, like I can do extra hitting and then I got to learn this brand new skill. And so I ultimately, and then I started asking questions. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned. Who can help me? Where do I want to go? And then my coach would stay after practice with me, go early before practice, and I got to work.
You one time said that this was a blessing in disguise where you thought it may be a demotion, but actually, in long term, this really led to the Olympics where you were a 3-time gold medalist. And you were saying that if you kept on a trajectory, you would not have made it as a pitcher and a first baseman on what you're playing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I look back and at that time, the pitching staff, like I just wouldn't have been at that level, the Olympic level that they were
Mhm,
at, as well as
mhm.
first base. There was, a woman in her 30s, Sheila Dowdy, one of the best home run hitters in the world. And she had been on the USA team for over a decade. I was not going to be earning that spot, no matter how great I hit. And so for me, I look back and it really was outfield that move, which you think about growing up and everyone's like, "Oh, the kids that can't play, put them in the outfield." That's the thought process. Maybe the game has changed now, but then, there it became really important to be kind of that last line of defense, and I took pride in it. And also, AB, I think another thing that happened was I had a coach who was so passionate about the little things, and I think that allowed me to scale so fast. If I had somebody that just put me through the motions, threw me in the outfield, said, "Catch a few balls," I also don't think I would have been there. So there were multiple things at play, but I also had to be a willing student and I was beyond willing. I like wanted to grow. I wanted to learn. I was hungry and knew I had a long way to go. But I'm really big about like you might fail, but you want to fail forward and then even more than that, how fast can you fail forward very fast? And that became kind of a motto that I worked hard to achieve.
Wow, I like that, and I've heard you say this before, cheat sheet that I've worked with her before and just seen how she can work a crowd and just a gifted communicator. But I'm actually going at this as if I've never heard of Leah before. You've used the word opportunity. There was an opportunity after that setback of going out there to the outfield, and then there was an opportunity trusting your coach. So much so that I wrote down the definition. I've heard you use this in a celebratory sense. And opportunity is appropriate, favorable time, a good condition to be promoted. Tell us about your mindset on how you looked at the opportunities in college and then ultimately with the Olympics.
I believe if you have an opportunity to step forward that is placed before you, all we can do is focus on what you can control. Our
Mm,
coach was very big on that, and I bought in as soon as he would share that control the controllables, your attitude and your effort. Like, that's it. And so it's like, okay, I want to be great. I'm going to work hard so that I build my confidence to believe I'm great, right? And I can come through even on a bad day. Like, no, I'm going to put in the preparation that's going to make me ready and prepared. That even on a, and I found that that ultimately is like why I think I succeeded because even on a bad day for myself and my expectations, like I have really high expectations of myself, but I still feel like I'm going to beat my opponent. I'm very competitive. There's that little, that extra stubborn piece inside of me. My husband probably doesn't always love it, but as a competitor, it works pretty well. And so, yes, like that opportunity, I believe. And so the opportunity to attend an Olympic tryout with, 60, 70 women from all over the US, many who have been
mhm,
on the USA team in
mhm.
the past, many who have much more experience. But I was like, it's an opportunity still. And until that team is picked, I have a chance. And I really believe people that talk themselves into greatness, like have a much higher chance, even over people who are more talented, but don't believe and maybe put themselves down and are too hard on themselves. Now, again, I'm hard on myself, but ultimately because I feel like I need to keep rising and there's always a higher level to be achieved.
So far, wow, we're cooking. You come out the gate rocking and rolling. The train is on the tracks going to Arizona. You had what could have been a demotion, but you used that as the right opportunity because of the mindset. Then you make the Olympic team, and there's three. I know you got those gold medals somewhere around. You got those gold medals anywhere around? There's a story there. Look at that beautiful thing 96, 2000, and '04. But the interesting thing, all of them have a story, but the most meaningful one to you is the 2000. Tell us why, in the middle of being celebrated, that was so important to you out of all those gifted medals.
Yeah, in the 2000 Olympics, actually, we won the first Olympic gold medal. I was a role player. I, split time in the outfield and right field, and then I did not play in the gold medal game. We go to Sydney, Australia. We are the favored team. We're featured on all the shows. We're, on the Today Show. That's the big talk. We have a 110 game win streak. And then all of a sudden we get to the Olympics and we win the first two games, but we're just not looking great. And then we lose 3 games in a row. Our bats went silent, our defense late in the innings. I mean, our pitchers did amazing, but we ended up stumbling and we lost 3 games in 3 days. We went from like setting an unbelievable win streak to at the Olympics when it matters the most, setting a new losing streak for USA softball. That was not timely. So we ended up actually really coming together as a team, and communication is absolutely crucial. I talk about that experience. I'd already had one Olympics. I was now, one of the veterans, but we still had a lot of older leadership. And at first, everybody really went quiet and silent on the first one. Second one, then people started kind of blaming and pointing fingers because people, it's really in struggles that we start to see what comes out, and people, want to push the blame somewhere else.
Why is that? I want to ask that. I want to stop. In fact, that picture right behind you, is that the dream team? They're right there, that good looking picture right
That's
behind you?
2004.
The 2004 were close though. But go back to this one. When things aren't working and the blame game, why is that? Is that human nature? And how do you pull yourself out to right your compass to point it north?
I feel like it is human nature to push off these feelings of failure and feel losing your identity, and all of a sudden a crisis, identity crisis. Really, I saw players that are world class. I really saw them just questioning everything because when it mattered the most, they were used to coming through. And now all of a sudden this is happening at the biggest moment. For me personally, my faith is everything. I love Jesus, and I just dug into God's word. I was sharing verses with my teammates. I was trying to encourage them. I was reminding that, when you go through struggles, right, and tribulation, that it produces character, and character brings hope. And I just, really was praying. I was listening to worship music prior to the games and trying to use this as an opportunity to shine in the midst of a hard time for a lot of people. I'm just as competitive, but I also knew where I found my identity and the hope. And I wanted to make sure others knew that this is not the end of the world. It's a blessing. We're playing softball and we just need to join together. And we did. We came together and we had after the third game, we had a meeting, and we just started really having personal accountability and voicing it. We also had encouragement and lifting up others and voiced it. And I'll tell you, it was like a brand new team. We didn't
Mm,
necessarily have, much better hitting, but we
mhm.
were way more united
Mindset.
and refocused on the purpose.
Now, I want to ask you because you had to practice what you preach. So, 2000, now you're a veteran softball player, but you and Tommy, you and your husband, you want to start a family. And that is not common. You were a trailblazer as one of the first softball players to have a baby, taking the time off. So, how were you able to manage that? What was your mindset? And now in 2004, there were more players able to do it, but you were a trailblazer. How were you able to dig deep and do both at a high level?
Yeah, actually, after we won the 2000 Olympics, I really was like, okay, I've been married a couple years. I wanna still play. I still have a passion to play, but I also don't wanna wait 4 years. You have to try out every single year for Team USA, and I was like, I could get cut at some point. So I said, "Let's just try to do both." A women's basketball player had done it, some women's soccer players had done it, and so I was like, "I'm gonna try," and I remember praying in bed one night, like, "God, this is my desire, but let your will be done." And I got pregnant, had my son Jake, took a summer off, like you said. I actually went from being in the worst shape of my life per se, because your body, my body had to go through carrying a baby and giving birth, to then getting in the best shape of my life. I went to a trainer who just like he challenged me. So again, it was almost like a backward to then further. Like I think at first he was like, "You're an Olympian," and then he saw my work ethic and how quickly I was advancing and the commitment and dedication I had to show up and do these 3-hour workouts. And some days I could not walk afterwards, but I was gaining ground quickly. And so when my son was 1 years old, we went to the World Championships, and I got the winning RBI against Japan for us to win the gold at the World Championships and become world champions. And then 2 years later, when he was 3, I got to play for Team USA. It was so much harder, Adrian, as well. Not originally. It was
Mhm.
physical. I had to get my timing back with hitting. I kinda went back to square one. I found a high school pitcher who was recruited to Notre Dame. We went out to a field, and she would pitch to me because I had to get my time back. And once I got it back, I was like, "Okay, thank you." Now I went back to the higher levels and men's pitchers. But I was willing to go backwards to then again go forward. And so just, I mean, my experience is I would not trade it. It was definitely way harder. I had to juggle a lot more. I had to have a much bigger support system behind me. But God is good. He filled in all the gaps, and I was able to win my third gold medal with a 3-year-old.
Then you started your new career. So you had success. And real quick, I'm gonna give you a shout out because 75% batting average, 9 out of 12 in World Series games. A lot of people think that's the Joe DiMaggio of softball. That record won't be broken. I want to hear it from you real quick. You think anybody will break that record?
Oh, there's been a couple years that it's been close, and now it's hilarious. I do radio at the Women's College World Series, and the guys that work with me in the booth, they'll be like, about 3 days in, you're fine this year."
Oh,
Or,
okay.
"Oh,
They got to get there.
this player's on the path. They know all the stats." And and so, I do expect it at some point, but what's crazy to me is that it's been 30 years, and
Hmm.
like I said, there was one year a player going into her last at bat, she was tied. She was also hitting 750. She came up to the plate, and I was like, "It's done. I'm done." And she grounded out to the second baseman, and hers dropped just a little bit. So I held it.
Oh, so you were happy. You were happy. Uh,
It
let,
was the one time I was rooting against her.
Oh, bless your heart. Let me ask you this. Then this is where I think you're really at your best, as well as being a family person. You started writing books. You started motivational speak. But let's go back. What sequence was first? Either the gold standard or when you were working with ESPN or Westwood One, and you say your first one, you absolutely bombed and wanted to quit as an announcer.
Yes. Yeah, so actually it was not ESPN, it was with, a different, you know, news station, and they had their sports channel, I should say, and they had me, come out and call a game, but literally, I flew in the day before, I had to wait until a game was over to find out who even advanced, and I've never done it, and I know nowadays that would be challenging even with, 15 plus years under my belt, and so I got thrown into an environment with no instruction whatsoever, no advice, and at the end of that game, told my husband, like, "Never again. I'm not putting myself in that situation. That was miserable." We're high achievers, and I do not wanna go in and be terrible. And then about, 8 years later, I got a call from ESPN, and I just at first I said, "Nope, I'm busy that weekend." My husband was like, "What? Are you crazy?" And so we need some wisdom around us. And I just thought, no, it's not my strength. And he's like, you've done it once. You need to try again. And this is ESPN. And they were very gracious and said, we understand you haven't done a lot. We're going to put you with someone who's a veteran who's going to help you. World of difference. The person that was sitting next to me and actually had a willing.
The mindset. Boy, that
Yeah.
was good. That was good. Now let me ask you about this one. The gold standard is phenomenal, and you break that down. I want to go. I know you wrote a book about that one. Do you have that book anywhere around? You talk about the gold standard. Tell us what the there we go. Tell us what the acrostics with GOLD stands for.
Yeah, I was thinking about just my journey and how I was able to really reach heights above many players that were more talented than me, but I realized there were just some core things, just the willingness to be disciplined and to sacrifice and the work. So the acronym I kind of had it broken down into G stands for goal setting and like knowing where you're headed. And I think that has to start because if not, we just are just heading in whatever direction, but we don't know where we're headed. And
Hmm.
so goal setting is number one. O is overcoming obstacles and turning them into the opportunities. And that I think really embodies the mindset that we have and that we need to say, okay, like, how am I willing to, after having a bad day, get back? Or when I'm in the middle of the struggle, or when I'm feeling really great, how do I stay humble, and overcoming the obstacles? And just where do we find confidence? And then, an identity is involved in that as well. And then L stands for leadership. And ultimately, I believe we all have an opportunity to be the leader inside of us and then also to learn from leaders around us. And so, where we get advice and communication being a big part of that. So, that's in that section. And then D is the dedication. And that piece, I believe, is more where the rubber
Hmm.
meets the road. Those are the ones that are willing to get to work because you can have a good mindset and you can have goals, But ultimately, it's the action piece. It's the ones that do it, that put, not just words to it, but action to it, and they take continuous action in the right direction.
And then also, I love this one. So that's a must read, talking about the gold standard and from your experience and what you've learned and what you've lived. The other one I love, tell us about the map, how to get there. You talk about breaking that down, the MAP. Break that one down for us.
Yeah, it's a similar focus, really, but I just thought, okay, a map is like we know our destination, right? And then, okay, how am I going to get there? We might face, roadblocks and detours and ditches and all these things, but the best way to stay out of all that
Hmm.
and to get to where we want to go and get there quickly and efficiently, I believe it's mindset stands for mindset, action, and people. Ultimately, it's what I just talked about, a different way of saying it, but I add that people piece in because I really believe how well we deal with others. For me, again, my teammates, like to me, I wanted them to win. I wanted to win. And I really believe who you surround yourself matters just probably the most of anything that we do. The voices we listen to, the people we allow to have a voice into us. Many people hold voices from their past that have just done nothing but tear them down, and they hold on to that, and that's what they carry. And we need to find the people that are going to lift us up, support us, encourage us, also hold us accountable. That is important. But how we deal with people, I think, is absolutely crucial. And I believe that's that third piece that I didn't necessarily talk about in the gold part, that I believe can help us get to where we want to go quicker and really go further, even than maybe we can imagine. And that's what's happened in my life. I keep doing things that I'm like, wow, how? But I know it's the people I'm connected to that are opening new doors.
It's interesting. I wrote down a few quotes that you had. I like this one where you said, don't be afraid to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Say yes to opportunities. What do you mean by that?
I have been continuing to do this. I mean, when I wrote my book, I had written a couple devotionals and that was a challenging for sure. But I think when I sat down to write, my chapter book, like it really was my heart and my passion, but to just go to a skill that I I don't really feel that qualified in, it just was hard and that stretched me. And then been speaking more to some businesses, and that is really making me nervous and stretching me, but I'm stepping forward because the opportunity has arisen. And I do believe in my message. And I do believe it's a skill that I can keep getting better at. And, a couple years ago, I joined a mastermind and I had not done that before. Last year, I went to, professional, I've spoken a lot of years, but, a professional speaking course. And even that, I was like, oh gosh, like, some of these people have, backgrounds in Broadway and they come at it from a different angle. But my heart was, okay, Leah, you know your strengths. You can always grow, learn, listen, and then take what you can and use it to move forward. And so I just keep stepping out and trying new things and it's challenging, but it's also fun. And I kind of now, even more than ever, like I kind of like trying things that are gonna stress me out a little bit.
Oh,
Hard.
okay, okay. So you're a secret thrill seeker. You talk about 3 books, and Imma be very personal here real quick, and you're in this book. It's the good book. It's called the Bible, and it's so interesting. Here's 6 degrees of separation. My son Adrian was graduating from the 8th grade back in, '03, and it's from mom and dad. It's from mom and dad. We gave him this at 13 years old. But the interesting thing is that our colleague, Leah, is in this book. Do you remember this? Having an opportunity to be on the Bible. So, right here, you really got to practice what you preach. I never knew we were going to be friends and colleagues, along with our buddy Scott Mendez, who's a colleague of us. But did you know that you were going to be on something like this?
While I was going through it, I'd connected with some well, I don't even sports spectrum, different ministries and different, that had publications. And then when that opportunity came up, I think just my willingness to be bold about it was really why that opportunity came. I had a platform now and I just wanted everybody to know Jesus. That was really my passion, my heart. And so when they asked me to be a part of that project, I was so humbled. Definitely never felt worthy. I still don't, but to me, it's the biggest honor. And I'll tell you, Adrian, this is the cool part is when I was in my first Olympics, I did not really know much of the Bible. I was a baby Christian growing, learning. And I remember getting a sports devotional New Testament and opening it up. And I remember reading the stories of the athletes in there and just being like, that's what I want to be like. And, I just, for me, it was a teammate in college that invited me to Bible study. I thought I believed in God. Well, I did believe, but I did not have a personal, deep, true, trusting relationship, surrendered to Jesus as Lord. And then my friend actually passed away. My teammate, she passed away a
Oh,
couple years later at the age of
yeah.
21. And
Man,
what happened is it shook me to say, don't keep it to yourself, no matter how scared you are to share with others, no matter how unqualified you feel, just share and let God do the rest. And that led to that opportunity as well, and it's the biggest honor.
man, that's so incredible. Now, the interesting thing, I want to ask you one more question before we get to wrapping this up. This is so rich. This is so powerful. I thought I knew you, but you're telling me even more dimensions about that. Let me ask you real quick. What have what lesson have you learned the most from failure or rejection?
I think it's just important to say that it's a way to learn. I've gotten better at that, to try to not allow the feelings of it to just go deep, instead to say, "What is the lesson?" and almost keep it here instead of letting it go deep inside and then using it, and so I think that's the biggest thing, 'cause I hate to lose. I'm sure you do as well. Like, I do not like not being good at something, and so I really have had to learn, and I'll never forget, it helped me when my coach would put it into words. I called him after a really rough game. He's my college coach, eventually became my Olympic coach for my 3rd Olympics, but when I was on the 2nd Olympic team, I called him after a really rough day and was just super upset. And he said, "Leah, your ability to succeed at this highest level is all going to come down to how well you can deal with failure." And I
Wow.
just would take his
Wow.
words and really,
Say that one again. Say that one again.
yeah, your
Say that one
ability to
again.
succeed. Yeah, your ability to succeed at higher levels will come down to the ability to deal with failure in the best way possible.
Wow.
And failure is what pushes most people backward. It's what holds people stuck, but those that actually can use it to move forward. And so for me, I don't like to fail. And they did this as an athlete. I would get frustrated and be like, I'm not letting it happen again. What do I need to do to change it? And he said with the Olympic team, he just really felt like all of us were constantly looking for the solution. I'm sure you and I would be very similar in that athletes that have reached that, you have to keep looking forward, whereas a lot of people are focusing and complaining about the problem and they're upset and their emotions, and instead it's like, no, 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 that's all fine, but what are we going to do about it? And
Man,
so I think for
beautiful.
me, it's really just taught me to keep moving. Sometimes it's a phone call. Obviously for me, it's prayer. It's going to the Lord first and foremost, but then it's also a phone call when I was writing my book and I just want to give up and I'm calling my mentor. It's my husband giving me words of encouragement when I feel like I'm not doing great with, something, and I feel like maybe I can't keep doing this and I should change direction. And he's like, "No, no, no, you're fine. It's normal. Keep going." And so
Oh,
it's taking that.
I'm liking that. Then I want to ask you one more question. Simply, how can you encourage our audience to keep climbing?
I heard this quote before and I absolutely loved it. I feel like it's been my life story. It's that, well, first of all, God has a big plan for you. I have to share that because at the root of it, I believe God has a plan for every single person, whether people realize it or not. Jesus loves you. He died for you. That's number one. But also with that, I had heard, don't chase your passions. I'm a passionate person, but chase your opportunities because that might create more passions.
Mm,
My life has been so many opportunities, seizing it, giving my best, learning quickly, and then enjoying new opportunities that keep coming because of just taking that action.
wow. Well done. Well done. My goodness. I got to remember that. Don't chase your passion, chase your opportunities. That's why I wrote down that definition. Wow, you fed us today a lot of encouragement. Leah, where can our listeners follow you? If they want to get your devotion and your books, where can they follow you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, leahamico.com, leahamico.com. And that's my website as well as Instagram. It's Leah20USA because once you have a number, you always have it. So they're there. And then on Amazon, my devotionals are on Amazon as well as my gold standard book.
Very well. My goodness. Thank you so much for joining us today, Leah. You are always classy and just getting better. Lefty, 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 from one lefty to another. Well done. Thanks for hanging today.
Thank you so much, AB. It's always an honor. I love that we've spoken together and you inspire me.
All right, everybody. That's my friend Leah. And also, if you want to know more about us, head on over to adrianbranchspeaks.com and then follow us on social media at Adrian Branch Speaks and download this show, The Climb, wherever podcasts are available. You guys are amazing. Thanks for hanging today. And remember, be encouraged and keep climbing. See you, everybody.